I've finished my quilt top and now I'm ready to sandwich the quilt together. By that I mean I'm ready to put my quilt top, my batting, and my backing together to form my quilt. Now I'm going to use this old table that I have because it's a nice flat surface. If you don't have a table like this at home, you might want to check your library or one of the churches in your area, because often they will have big tables like this that you can use for layering your quilt. I've made sure that I've pressed the top and I've pressed the back. Now, I've taken the back and laid it face down on this table, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and tape this to the table, and as I tape it I'm going to sort of stretch it a little so that it's taut. So I've gone around and I've finished taping this. If I need to stretch it out or let loose on any side, I can readjust this whenever I want to. So my back is down, and I always make sure that I cut my backing a little bit larger than the quilt top, because that backing sometimes gets sucked up when I quilt the top. So you always want a little bit larger. If you have a king size quilt, then I would cut it more than an inch, maybe up to 5-6 inches larger on the side. But this small piece, I just need to cut it about an inch larger. So then I put my batting down, and I've also cut my batting larger. And I need to go on my batting and pick up any little lint that I can see, because if I have a light colored top, sometimes these little pieces of lint show through. And I need to do that also on the back, because I want to make sure that none of this is going to show through, because once I start quilting this, I'm not going to be able to get back in there unless I take the whole thing apart, and we wouldn't want to do that. So I've got this, I smooth it out, and I position the top down like this, and I smooth that out. At this point you have to decide whether you're going to quilt this by hand or quilt it by machine, because that's going to determine how you're going to baste it. If you're going to quilt it by machine, you're going to use safety pins for basting. If you're going to quilt it by hand, you're going to use a needle and thread for basting. So let's pretend that we're going to quilt it by hand. I have this long needle threaded, single strand with thread. I wouldn't use red, I'm just using it red now so you can see it, but I would use white thread whenever I'm basting. And I start here, and I am going to baste a line all the way across. I'm going to use big stitches. I'm going all the way down to the back of the fabric, because when I baste, what I'm trying to do is get all of these layers to hold together, so when I go to quilt it, there's not a whole lot of movement between those layers. So I would work my way all the way across like that, basting this first line. After I baste this, I would baste through the center, and then I would baste another horizontal line here, another horizontal line there. I would baste these vertical lines, and I'd probably do at least once through this diagonal and once through that diagonal. And then I'm ready to take the tape off and to work on my hand quilting. Now let me take these stitches out, and let's talk about if I'm going to machine quilt it. If I'm going to machine quilt it, I need to decide, let's see, where am I going to machine quilt this? Well, I want it to be really easy, so I'm just going to follow, when I get it to my machine, I'm going to follow this line here, just what I call stitch in the ditch. These seam lines are what I'm going to follow. So since I know my sewing machine, and the foot that goes on the sewing machine is going to be going like this, I'm going to not pin in that area. I'm going to try to pin away from it. So let's see, let's put a pin here, and let's try a pin here. I usually like my pins to be about 3 inches apart, even though I don't get a ruler out and measure. From here to here is probably an inch, so they're pretty close, but I want to make sure that when I take this to the quilt, or to the sewing machine, that my quilt doesn't move, because it will cause great problems. I get all kinds of bunching on the back, and it takes a long time to rip out those stitches. So I would continue pinning like this in each one of these sections, and then it's ready for me to take it to be quilted. And at that time, I would just take and pull up the masking tape and be on my way.